to the CEO Showgirl podcast, where we explore the intersection of performance, business, and culture. I'm your host, Lavinia Vale, and today we'll be delving into the subversive nature of burlesque, its history, its impact, and the valuable lessons it offers beyond the stage. But before we go any further, let me introduce my co-host, Jonathan Jones. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Lavinia. So, Jonathan Jones, I'm a veteran, a friend, and a curious observer. I'm looking forward to exploring this topic and uncovering the deeper implications of burlesque beyond its entertainment value.
To understand the subversive nature of burlesque, we have to first look at its origins. So the term burlesque is derived from the Italian burla, meaning joke or mockery. Going all the way back into the 16th century, which is the 1500s, burlesque was an offshoot of the commedia dell'arte, which was an early form of Italian theater. Burlescos were mostly political satires at the time, but as the commedia dell'arte evolved, burlesque also evolved from a variety of different shoot-offs to become the provocative and subversive art form that we have today. It served as a platform for social commentary and resistance against restrictive norms for over 200 years.
So, burlesque wasn't always slender and beautiful women taking their clothes off?
No. In fact, Victorian burlesque in the 18th and 19th centuries featured everything from musical theater to ballet to wrestling or boxing matches. That was pretty entertaining to read about. It was during this period that the British performers, one of which was Lydia Thompson, and her British blondes challenged the societal expectations by parodying traditional gender roles and took their acts on the road, so to speak, and came to the United States.
Really moving up in the world.
Something like that. In this case, we can thank the British bombshells because by the early 20th century, burlesque had evolved into a combination of satire and sensual performance, with figures like Gypsy Rose Lee demonstrating that intelligence and performance artistry were deeply intertwined. And I'm just going to throw in a little bit of a plug here for World Burlesque Day, April 26th this year. On the 27th, I'm going to be co-hosting a world record-breaking attempt at the world's largest online burlesque class. Last year, we had 158 participants, I believe, from all over the world, and Gypsy Rose Lee's son was our special guest. So you might want to tune in this year and see what's going to happen.
So, burlesque was not merely entertainment, but also a form of protest?
Precisely. By exaggerating femininity and playing with power dynamics, burlesque performers questioned and often undermined prevailing social norms. It remains a medium through which performers reclaim agency and refine their narratives.
That is empowering. At what point did burlesque extend to men and people of color?
Well, see, that's the thing. As with all things race-related in the United States, I'm afraid that history has been whitewashed too. You see, despite burlesque being a protest and Thompson paving the way for women to be sexually aggressive, I'm afraid we have to remember the context of the 1860s in the United States. The country had just finished a civil war that was fought for the right for one type of people to own another type of people. Systemic racism was still firmly entrenched in post-Civil War America, and unfortunately, burlesque was no different. The burgeoning burlesque stars of the US, like Ava Tangway and Sophie Tucker, they wore blackface.
That's not good.
No, it isn't. You see, at the time, according to Sekia Dorset in her master's thesis, as today, Black burlesque performers are seen as lewd and crass, while their white counterparts are seen as sexy. It's respectability politics, and it was much the same in the mid to late 19th century. That isn't to say that there weren't any Black performers, though. Since this is Black History Month, although we're almost at the end of it, regardless of what a certain person has to say about it, I wanted to take a moment and just talk about the Creole show of 1890. A white male producer named Sam T. Jack created a show that featured all Black performers, and among them were Aida Overton Walker, Stella Wiley, Dora Dean, and Florence Hines. Hines was famous for her male impersonations, so drag, instead of drag queen, like a drag king. while Overton, Wiley, and Dean went on to have significant stage careers that helped change the way audiences viewed Black performers. In fact, Adia Overton struck mainstream fame, we'll call it, with her version of a supremely seductive and provocative Salome dance, or the Dance of the Seven Veils. Aida confessed, however, that she restrained herself in the dance and did not go all out like her white counterparts. She was lauded by white press as having performed the dance with grace and artistry.
But she had to hold back
Yes, she had to restrain herself
because she was Black.
because she was Black.
So after the Creole show, though, things were different, right? White people saw that Black performers were just as talented as white performers.
Unfortunately, no. Even though Overton pushed boundaries and paved the way for many Black performers by helping to create the Darktown Follies in New York, they were all practically written out of burlesque history.
How?
Florenz Ziegfeld.
You mean the guy who created the Ziegfeld Follies, the longest running vaudeville production?
One and the same. You see, he went to a Darktown Follies show and fell in love with it. He licensed their music and contacted the lead of the Darktown Follies show to request that they come train his dancers for his Follies show. Despite the creative innovations of the Black female performers he contracted to teach his white female performers, being the backbone of his fame, Black women were barred from performing on his stage.
Wow, that is terrible.
It absolutely is. And if you want more information about the history of Black performers in American burlesque theater, head on over to patreon.com/CEO Showgirl, and I'll have a post linking you to Dorset's thesis. It's totally worth the read. So we kind of got a little impassioned in the first segment about the history of burlesque there, didn't we? And by we, I mean me.
Yeah, just a little bit. But it was important, though.
Well, when I say burlesque is for everybody, I truly, truly mean it. But we need to move on. So now let's examine the psychological underpinnings of burlesque. Studies in neuroscience suggest that anticipation plays a crucial role in human pleasure. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who is a neuroendocrinologist at Stanford University, explains that dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, is most active during the anticipation of the reward rather than its receipt.
That is an intriguing concept, but how does it apply to burlesque specifically?
Well, the art of burlesque is fundamentally about delayed gratification. Through carefully orchestrated reveals and suggestive movements, performers engage their audience's curiosity and imagination and create a dynamic interaction that heightens the engagement.
I see the connection. This concept also translates into fields like marketing, branding, where strategic reveals build customer anticipation.
Or like true crime novels, or psychological thrillers, or horror films.
Lavinia, should we be worried?
Worried? Why?
You're salivating and holding a knife?
Oh, just cutting vegetables for a salad. You did want salad for lunch, right?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
Mm-hmm. Where were we?
Strategic reveals build customer anticipation?
Oh, right, exactly. In a world increasingly driven by instant gratification, burlesque teaches us the power of controlled revelation. Jonathan, did you know that delayed gratification in a social situation relies entirely on perceived trustworthiness?
How do you mean?
In a 2013 study, Michelson and cohorts discovered a strong correlation between the perceived trustworthiness of one person and the willingness to delay gratification from the other.
Can we translate that into English? Oh, scholarly one?
Fine. In the study, participants were given 3 vignettes to read, each accompanied by a picture. The participants would then use a Likert scale to rate their willingness to delay gratification based on the information in the vignette and the way the face looked that accompanied that vignette. Make sense?
Well, I can see the pictures, but I don't really see the connection.
Okay, so let's do kind of a quick recreation here. Let's say a complete stranger walks up to you. You have the knowledge of the stranger's interaction within the previous 2 to 3 minutes of approaching you. You perceive that the prior interaction as neutral, untrustworthy, or trustworthy. And then you meet. You look at the person's face The feeling you have of them based on their prior interaction will correlate with your willingness to trust them. So if you perceived their interactions previously as trustworthy, and then they say, I will give you $20 now, but I'll give you $70 if you meet me here in an hour, you're more likely to accept the risk and take the higher amount of money. If, however, you perceived the prior interactions to be untrustworthy and they present you with that same offer, you're more likely to take the $20. The neutral interaction actually didn't have a statistically significant difference.
Okay, I think I get it. So, like, if you were at a party and you saw somebody talking to somebody else and then they came over to talk to you, you'd kind of base your initial interaction on what you saw already.
Yes, exactly. So in the study, the people were reading vignettes that included previous interactions for the person that they were supposed to be responding to with the offer of the $20 now or $70 later, and then making their decisions based on those vignettes.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's very fascinating, and I could spend a lot more time on this topic. Did you know?
I think we should probably move on. Delayed gratification is a tool used in marketing to entice customers to purchase products, and it is also the backbone of burlesque.
Yes, exactly. The will I or won't I scenario. And spoiler, I will. Okay, we're in the home stretch here. We talked a lot about the history of burlesque, and we talked about the psychology behind the art of the tease, which I'm sure you'll be delighted to know will be its own entire podcast episode.
Yay!
So let's discuss the broader applications of burlesque, particularly in business and leadership.
Lesson 1, presence and confidence.
Burlesque performers command attention. Similarly, business leaders must present themselves with confidence and poise, ensuring that their message is both compelling and authoritative.
Lesson 2, the art of the reveal.
Successful branding is about storytelling. Much like a well-executed burlesque act, an effective business strategy reveals information progressively, creating intrigue and maintaining audience engagement.
And lesson 3, challenging conventional norms.
Companies that embrace innovation often disrupt industries by defying expectations. This mirrors burlesque's tradition of challenging the status quo through humor, satire, and spectacle.
That is a powerful perspective. It seems burlesque offers a framework not just for artistic expression, but also for strategic thinking.
Precisely. By examining burlesque as both an art form and a methodology, we can uncover valuable lessons applicable across various fields, otherwise known as skill transference. To summarize, burlesque is more than an entertainment form. It is a practice in empowerment, anticipation, and creative resistance. Whether on stage, in business, or in daily interactions, understanding these principles can enhance both personal and professional endeavors.
This has been a fascinating discussion, Lavinia. Thank you for shedding light on the multifaceted natures of burlesque.
Thank you, Jonathan, and to our listeners. Jonathan, would you like to read the names of our seasoned performers?
Sure. Right now, there's just one, and that's Clockwork Dragon.
Yes, we love our Clockwork. And if you want to hear your name on this podcast, then all you have to do is sign up as a stage kitten. That's a $1 a month support level, and we'll make sure to give you a shout out.
If you found today's discussion insightful, head over to Patreon and let us know your thoughts. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating and leave a comment.
Any comment is fine. This month, why don't you tell us your favorite cheese in the review on Apple Podcasts? The 5 stars and the review just help our algorithm and get this podcast out there to the masses.
Until next time, remember, the world is your stage.
Make every moment count.